Thank you very much. First for the invitation, thank you very much to the Institute. Thank you very much, Jose Borrell, for inviting me. I don't know really how to handle this intervention, but I'll try to do it in an organized fashion so that you can get something out of it. I'd like to touch 4 or 5 points, no more, and try to do it, as I said, in an organized fashion and in the spirit that Quentin has said. In the spirit of being a convinced European, that means that I'm going to speak with certain pride on what we have done, and also trying to analyze the difficulties that we have and the mistakes that we may have made and we hope we will not make in the future. But let me start by saying that for foreign policy of the European Union, the crisis has been very important. But I'd like to start by recalling that many of the tendencies in the world that we had to face today, they are not born during the crisis. They were born before the crisis. What the crisis has done is fundamentally accelerate those processes. The process of globalization, the process of emerging countries, started way before the crisis started. And we have begun, as Europeans, to handle that. It is true that the arrival of the crisis, as I said, accelerated the process very much. And at the same time, it got us in a situation rather complicated. We have just finished the Lisbon Treaty in 1999. We are beginning to put together some of the elements of the new architecture. At the same time, we had to handle a very complicated crisis in which I think we have to say it and to think about it. The Treaty of Lisbon had not touched at all the architecture of the financial and economic elements of the European Union. We have touched just about everything of the architecture, but we haven't touched anything of the financial sector. And that brings me back to the convention. You remember the convention? Well, let me tell you that in the convention, when we started the convention, and it was put on the table at that time, 5, 6 years ago, that we should start talking about the economic structure, the economic architecture of the European Union, it was a no. And it was a no by one country that made that impossible. I'm not going to mention the country, but you can imagine what country it was. If we had touched from that point of view, or that from that time, the new architecture of the economic and financial system, we would have handled the crisis probably with the best equipment, if I may say. Now, let me say that suppose that we take today the 10 most important economic countries, the most, through GDP, the most important countries of the world. Now, let's see how many are Europeans. There are 4. Now, suppose we project these figures to the year 10 years from today. There will be 3. And if we keep projecting to 20 years from now, it will be 2. In 40 years from now, it will be 0. So 40 years from now, the world, the 10 most important countries of the world, will not have any European country. Okay, I think we have that obliged us to make a very important reflection. What are we going to do? Should we integrate ourselves? Should we continue living our lives separately? I think that statement, or that looking at the evolution of the world, will take us very much from today, to make the commitment that we have to keep on together. Otherwise, all the effort that we've been done through history, even here, it will be dissipated in a different world in which we will be very far down on the list of the important powers. Now, let me give you another example. We have been accustomed, the Europeans, to listen, to hear about the G7. The G7, we are, from the European Union, 4 countries in the G7. I can tell you now another G7 countries in the world, none of them European, which it will be more important economically than the G7 of today. Let me take 2 countries, let's say, from Asia, China and India. Let's take two for Latin America, Mexico and Brazil. Let's take Turkey and Indonesia and Russia. These 7 countries, in which no European is there, are more important than the G7 of today, GDP-wise. Well, it shouldn't make us think also what is going on. Now, that is very important for the foreign policy of the European Union. I think the world has changed a lot, and the first consequence of this is that the European Union better get united and continue being united if we want to have some influence in the world of the coming times. Now, the second thing I would like to say is that is the European Union as such, as a structure needed today? Forget about what I said before, that I said yes, but let's suppose that we say no. What would be the situation in the world of today of some world in which in architecture, in the global architecture, the European Union as such doesn't exist? Let me tell you that there are many countries in the world that they have decided to live in a way like the European Union. I like to mention the ASEAN countries. The ASEAN countries, they got together because we existed. We didn't get together if we didn't exist. The ASEAN countries are now more than 500 million people, that live in a structure which is very similar to the European Union, moving towards a monetary union. With this group of countries, we have a relationship, trade and economy, very similar to the one we have with China. So it's a very important player in the world, the ASEAN countries. Now, the same can be said, and I think it will be said, but with a little bit of time, in Latin America. I'm very sure that in Latin America, something of that nature, of more united, or more global Latin America, I wouldn't say that. But I mean, a global Latin America which is more united, I can imagine also in the future. So I think the world, if we want to have a level of governance in the world which is satisfactory, we may need structures which are regional of this type. Let me put it, bring in a metaphor from my previous incarnations. As you know, I used to be a rather humble professor of theoretical physics. And I think that I'd like to distinguish here between the atom and the molecule. In nature, we have molecules and we have atoms. The molecule is nothing else than putting together some atoms, make them share some external electrons, and change completely the nature. I think the European Union in a way, the ASEAN in a way, they are like molecules in this complicated world of atoms in which China is an atom, the United States is an atom, etc. And I think the world will be much easier to govern if we have groups of atoms, group of countries working like that. Now let me see how we, from the European Union, how we do handle the most important neighbors or the most important country we have to deal with. We have mentioned the United States. The United States is not that we are having less relationship with the United States because we had many relationships beyond the economic relationship with the United States because the territory of conflict used to be European. And that's why we had so much of a relationship. Now, fortunately, the territory of conflict is not European, and normally the relationship will have to come to another level of equilibrium. It will be different. But from the economic point of view, let me give you one figure. If you take the maritime trade in the world of today, and you take the number of containers that leave, let's say, Shanghai, and arrive to Seattle, Washington, you call that 25%. And you take the same city, Shanghai, and count the number of containers that go to New York, that will be about 23. If you take the number of containers that leave Shanghai and arrive to Hamburg, Europe, it will be the same, around 25. If you take the number of ships that leave New York and go to Hamburg, they will not be 10%. That's a big change. That is a big change. If you look at these figures some years ago, really New York, Hamburg will not be 10%, only you London, whatever you have, the transatlantic will not be 8% or 10%. And therefore, a lot of things are taking place in the world that are well described also by that figure. Now, let me go to the Pacific. I happened to be, and I think Quentin was with me at that, in the meeting of Munich in February. We had a seminar there, it was a security conference, and we had a seminar, one of the tables was with China, Europe, the United States, and one other country that was Australia. I think it was more or less the. When we talk about the Asian Pacific region, I remember very vividly some of the speakers in the table say, you Europeans are committing a mistake by abandoning the Pacific region. You remember? The Pacific region, it looks like a place which they have no conflict internally, that they are covered by this fantastic level of growth that we are not seeing what is being underneath. And what is underneath is very similar to what it was Europe in the 19th century. And therefore, we will need you very much when we want to resolve this problem. So, with this I want to say that there is demand in the world for European Union action. When you go to China and you talk with people which are at the top of the pyramid of power, they tell you, we need you in the world. We have demand for you in the world to be active. We don't want to be in a G2 world. So therefore, there is need and demand for the action of Europe in the world. But for that, we need really to organize ourselves better and do what we have to do. It's true that in this period of time, subject to the crisis, nobody pays much attention to crisis management, conflicts, etc., because the big conflict is an economic conflict. And we have to be able, those who are in charge of the foreign policy, or those who are interested in the foreign policy, to navigate, probably with less visibility, but to keep navigating through the crisis, thinking that the rough weather, it will come over, it will finish. And I think we had to begin to prepare the post-crisis times in foreign policy and in security policy. If we don't do that, we will commit the same mistake that we did before, that we didn't look forward and we didn't prepare, being in good weather, we didn't prepare the possibility of a time of rough weather. Rough weather is the crisis. We will be back to in good weather. And I think we have to face this moment in which we arrive to good weather again, well prepared. And well prepared means with all the system that is being prepared by the Commission and the Council, with the external service. We have to do that on security also. I think we are committing a tremendous mistake to forget to put together at this time the budgets on security, defense, etc. We have been talking this morning with Mario Monti about how to give life more integration to the single market. In this sector, the sector of security is a lot that can be done, and it should be done even at this period of time in which we think that we are in a time in which we are much more concentrated on the economy, but we have instruments already in the treaty to do it, and I think we have the obligation to do it. Now, other thing which is taking place now that we should change is that in the international fora, which are fundamental now to govern this world of the globalized world, all the governance of the world, the European Union continues to be unable to speak with one voice. And if I may say, not only unable, I think we have been, in some occasions, presenting an image really catastrophic. I'll have one in my mind that I want to share with you. It has been mentioned by my predecessor, Libya. In the Libya, we have a Security Council of the United Nations was almost perfect. If you were to ask you what it will be a United Nations Security Council that you will dream to have, it was almost was that in the times of Libya. The only country was missing of the countries you may have in mind is Japan. But we had four extensions. One of the extensions was European. The other extension was China, with India, China, with India, with Russia, and with Germany. And so this is the type of thing that even in this case, even with crisis, even with a dramatic situation of difficulty, it could not happen, because if that type of thing happens, really is the beginning of disarray also in foreign policy. So I really think that we have to be very careful in this period of time. We're going to be all obsessed with the economic crisis, not to forget that the world continues living, that the world is changing, and the European Union is a fundamental piece of this fundamental element of this complex world. Now, I'd like to finish by saying that, as Mario Monti has said today, I think the big problem that we have from the European Union, this is the negative part, we are lacking people with a longer time vision, or leaders, or whatever you want to call it. And I think it's very difficult when we have a political cycle which is so short. Really, the political cycle in which we are living is 2 years. 2 years, basically, things happen and things change. The President of the United States in 2 years is over, or it's a different character, a different person. This is a very short period of time to handle global problems and to handle the difficult problems that we have to handle today. When we have countries in the other parts of the world, we have the long lights turn on all the time, and we turn it on and off every 2 years. It's very difficult to be together and handling and defining the world of today in these circumstances. I think we have to do something to give a little bit more of tenacity in the action, perseverance in the actions, if we want to handle a solution to the problems that we have today. And as I said, if the European Union is an actor, a fundamental actor, we have changed the structure of the European Union to give more continuity to the leaders, to give more power to the leaders, give more facility to the leaders. But therefore, they have to deliver in relation with the capacities that they have with the Treaty of Lisbon. Now, I don't think that we can get out of this situation, out of this crisis, without more integration. It's impossible to imagine by a sensible person that this can be done by less integration of Europe. This is not going to be an easy task, but it's absolutely necessary. And it will be difficult because when we integrate more, we are going to touch more and more sensible things, parameters, that are related to the nation state. And there are countries that will be less attractive or more reluctant to pull sovereignty of that level. We are going to pull sovereignty on taxation, probably, eventually. We have to put sovereignty on handling of the budgets. And this type of thing is not going to be very easy to do it, but it has to be done. It has to be done if we want really to get out of this situation alive, this crisis alive. Now, other problem that's going to come that has consequences for the foreign policy is that we have some member states of the European Union of today, I have in mind, for instance, the United Kingdom, which will not be in the position of moving in that direction. But at the same time, the United Kingdom is a fundamental country for the foreign security policy of the European Union. Now, how are we going to handle that is a big question. It's a big question, a big problem that we have to tackle. But I think that without moving the train forward in a more cohesive manner, more integrated, we will not be able to maintain the European Union active, responsible to other crises that may come, better prepared, and better suited for the life of the 21st century. So many problems are at the table, but when you look back, I mean, never we have gone through a crisis of this nature, but we have gone through many, many, many difficulties. And the European Union has always been able to overcome those difficulties and move forward. Probably this is the most difficult crisis that we have had, and we are the people who have to handle it. We are the generation who have to handle it. And I think we have to handle it with passion, and we have to handle it in a manner that gives a lesson also to the new generations. I think the problem that we may have, as had been said by Barnier this morning, is the new generations are not in the same tonality that the generation that constructed the European Union or continued the construction of the founding fathers. And we have an obligation to explain or to create a narrative that is attractive for the new generation of citizens of the European Union. With that, I'd like to finish in the sign of optimism, in the sense that we have to overcome these difficulties or these moments in which we are living with more integration. I want to insist on that. And I know that not everybody agrees with that position, but I think from my point of view is the only way that we will be coming out of this crisis. And at the same time, with the obligation that we should have, the generation of people which are here in this room, and all the generations that are here, not all, but some generations are here, to convey to the younger people that the European Union is a fundamental element for our lives, and not only for the lives of the European, but also, as I tried to say before, because the world of today and of tomorrow will need a voice, the attitude to continue the history that the European Union has shown its capabilities along the history. The State of the Union is a good debate. It has been a good debate so far. I think we've learned a lot, and we've put together some of the reflections that are in the minds of many, many people, and I hope that some consequences will be drawn from this meeting, and let's see if these consequences are communicated, disseminated, so that other people will be able also to continue the battle that we have in front of us. Thank you very much.